everyone. Thank you so much for joining our University of Toronto Mississauga virtual campus tour. My name is Alicia Singh. I am a recruitment officer here as well as a recent graduate. And today I'm joined by my lovely colleagues, Arianne and Jen. So if you both would like to take a moment to introduce yourself, we'll start off with Arianne first.
Hi everyone, my name is Arianne. I'm a third year student and I'll be taking you on a tour of campus from my perspective today.
And hi everyone, my name is Jen Bryden. I'm the Occupancy and Admissions Coordinator here at UTM Student Housing. So I'm going to be talking all about residents and all the things that we do over here.
Thank you, both of you. So yes, Arianne is going to share with us a little bit of her student experiences, and then Jen will be giving us an overview about everything regarding residents. As the presentation goes on, feel free to drop any questions you folks may have in the chat below. We do have colleagues from recruitment and admissions and residents who are behind the scenes who will be able to answer any questions you folks may have. Towards the end of the presentation, I am going to be bringing Jen and Arianne back live for us to be able to answer your questions live. So feel free to either drop it throughout the presentation or hold on to those towards the end, but we will try our best to make sure that all of your questions get answered. So I'll be seeing Jen and Arianne very shortly. Before we get started, it is really important for us to start off with a land acknowledgement. We wish to acknowledge the land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. All right, so I'm going to be passing it over to you, Arianne. I can't wait to see the rest of your tour.
Thank you. So hi everyone, my name is Arianne, and as I said earlier, I'm a third year student pursuing a double major in political science and French. So I want to tell you just a little bit about me. So I am a student ambassador, community engagement for student recruitment and admissions, and it's part of the work study program. And I'm also the VP Finance for the Filipino Student Association. So fun fact, I was actually born in the Philippines and I moved to Canada when I was 8. So in this picture, this is actually me and my family before we boarded our flight to Canada. So I'll be talking more in depth about these things throughout my tour. And I'll be taking you through all the buildings on campus, as well as where I typically grab a bite to eat in between my classes and where my favorite study spots are. So up first is the Knepp Center and Innovation Complex. So before I was studying political science and French, I was actually enrolled in commerce in my first year. And this is because my career goal is to become a lawyer. I decided, maybe corporate law is of my interest, so I chose to apply to commerce. But then at the same time, in my first year, I was also taking political science and French courses as electives. It was throughout this time where I decided that commerce was not for me, and I decided to completely pursue political science and French. One of the courses I had to take in first year was ECO 100, which is Introduction to Economics. This is a very popular first year course, and typically in lectures you have about 300 students, and KN 137 is a lecture hall where it was held. However, you do have the option of going to the ECO aid room or the economics aid room if you need any assistance from your professors and TAs. And TAs are teaching assistants who are typically in their upper years or maybe graduate students. So in this aid room is where they have their office hours. So I went here a lot in my first and second year actually because I was taking a lot of eco courses. You can also find the office of the registrar here, and this is a really good place if you need academic advising, financial aid advising, or just student success support. And this is typically a first stop for a lot of students, especially in the beginning of the semester in September, because they're finalizing their courses. You'll also find that the Student Recruitment and Admissions is a division within the Office of the Registrar. So I did mention I work as a student ambassador, and what I do is I help out in brainstorming initiatives where we can engage with you, our prospective students and applicants. So you'll find that the following program is part of my portfolio. So I organize the UTM Student Panel, Ask Me Anything, which is basically a panel of current students. You ask us questions live and we answer them. And you'll also find on Instagram where I've been working on UTM Minute, which is essentially we ask current students a question, so such as this one, what made you choose UTM? And they answer in just a little bit over a minute. But in the past, I was also a tour ambassador for the office, volunteering some time out of my day to deliver tours to students and their families. Also, at the UTM campus, you'll find that many of the buildings are connected, so let's now head to the William G. Davis building. So the William G. Davis building is actually one of the most recently renovated ones on campus. And the resources that you can find here are, for example, the Center for Student Engagement, or CSE. I actually worked for CSE last year as a peer leadership coach, where I facilitated the UTM Lead workshops. Essentially, they're a series of leadership seminars where students can gain skills outside of the classroom. Activities like this can actually earn you a notation on your co-curricular record, which is a document that summarizes all your involvements throughout your undergraduate career. So they also organize lots of events for students, one of which is a series of academic department orientations, or ADOs. So they organize this during orientation week, and I attended the Commerce ADO, and I learned a lot about how to leverage my resources to have a successful first year. You can also find the Career Center in this building. What they do is they organize mock critiques and mock interviews and resume critiques. And I feel that because I attended their workshops, I earned skills which presented me as a strong candidate and led me to be hired for work-study jobs. Let's now head over to the Recreation, Athletics, and Wellness Center. So the Recreation, Athletics, and Wellness Center, or more commonly referred to as ROC, is actually where UTM is hosting the Trillium Health Partners Vaccine Clinic, but it's also an athletic facility. So you can find that before the pandemic, I would try to squeeze in a little bit of time for working out. So I'd go to the gym. And these are actually included in incidental fees, which are already paid for with your tuition. So what you can actually see is that there's a track that spans around the rock area. And it's really nice that you can just run around or jog or walk. There's different speeds. But anyways, these, as I mentioned, these are included in your incidental fees. And to access the athletic facilities, you would just need to present your student card, or what we refer to as your T card. They also do drop-in classes. And when I was on campus, I would actually attend the yoga Pilates classes as well. So they also have women's only hours. And what this means is that a portion of the gym is closed off, and only those who identify as female are able to use this space to have a safe space just for fitness activities. I've been able to do this in the past as well. But recently they have moved their programming online, which students can still participate in. So they can participate in live sessions through Zoom, or they can just watch their recorded activities online. Next, we'll be going over to the Communication, Culture, and Technology building. So the Communication, Culture, and Technology building, or CCT, actually holds one of the two largest lecture halls on campus. So this is CC 1080, and it holds a max of 500 students, and you can see it does look like a bit of a movie theater. First-year classes tend to be very large, such as MGM 101, which is Introduction to Management Functions. It's a very popular first-year course. However, although lectures tend to be large, you do have the opportunity in your tutorials to go more in-depth with the material and ask your TAs questions, so you don't have to feel intimidated. A lot of first-year courses do have to take these introductory courses, which is why they're so large. But again, you have the opportunity within your tutorials and your practicals to interact with peers and faculty to get more hands-on learning. Here you'll also find the UTM service desk, which is where I got my T card and I was able to set up my UToronto email. So you can actually use these to access services such as shuttle and printing. And, with your U Toronto email, it's how your professors will contact you. So this is actually a video of me setting up my T-card. But now we'll be going over to the Hazel McCallion Academic Learning Center. So this is the Hazel McCallion Academic Learning Center, or HMALC, or simply referred to as the library. So you'll find that there's actually a Starbucks right across the library. So if you want to take a quick study break and you just want to grab a cup of coffee, you can just hop in line. So the thing about the library is that it's a really popular space to study in. A lot of students study here, so I advise that you come early to pick out a great spot. It's also open 24/7 during exam season, so outside of regular operating hours, you can just present your T-card. You can also book a study room here with friends, either to study or to have meetings with your club. However, as great of a space it is, I don't study here often, and I'll tell you all about my favorite study space later. I have borrowed a lot of items, not just textbooks, from the Information and Loans desk. So first I'll be talking about course reserves. Essentially, in my second year, I did not buy a single textbook. I just came to the Information and Loans desk and I went through course reserves and I just borrowed my book every week for 2 hours to do my homework. And it was great because I saved money and I kept myself accountable to do my homework. You can also borrow a calculator here. So I did take a math course in first year, and one time I had a test and I forgot my calculator. So the library really helped me out here. And then you can also borrow whiteboard markers and erasers. So in the previous slide, when you saw the study rooms, there's actually whiteboards in there. So if you want to use them when you're studying, you can actually borrow whiteboard markers, which is great. And lastly, I've even been able to borrow an external DVD player. So in second year, I had this course where I was watching movies in French, and I found out that my laptop actually didn't have a DVD player, so I borrowed an external DVD player from the library. And it was great because I borrowed it for like 5 hours, which gave me enough time to watch my movie. But now let's make our way over to the instructional center. So this is the Instructional Center, or IB, and it's a building that's not affiliated with any academic department. It's just a building full of lecture halls and lots of study spaces. So you can find IB 110 here, which is the other 500-seater hall on campus. And what the course I took here was MAT 133, which is a first-year calculus course for commerce. And this is what it looks like now with the pandemic, because they're adhering to social distancing guidelines. This is just to ensure that students can be on campus learning and be safe at the same time. You'll also find outside of the instructional center is the shuttle bus to go downtown. And I myself didn't take any courses at U of T St. George, but it was very convenient whenever I needed to commute downtown. It's paid for within the incidental fees in your tuition, so you don't have to pay additional fare every time you use it. However, this is only exclusive for UTM students. So if you were a U of T St. George student that wanted to use this bus to go to UTM, you would have to pay the fare every single time. And of course, there's lots of food spots on campus, and this is IB has one of the best ones. So you can find Quesada for burrito bowls, Subway. I really miss Subway because their sub of the day has a special place in my heart. And they also have bento sushi. And one of the things I've ordered at bento sushi was actually this really great rice bowl. And I think about it a lot. I really miss it, But get excited because we're now going to learn about MN. So this is Monjuwe and Moanan, or MN, and it's actually my favorite building on campus. It's home to the departments of political science and language studies. And of course, I'm a huge advocate of going to professors and TA's office hours. So it's another option you have aside from your tutorials and your lectures. It's really super helpful because you really have the chance to hone in on the material you're having trouble with. And it's a great way to build relationships with your professors. You'll also find the Robert Gillespie Academic Skills Center, or the RGASC, which is a great resource for essay writing, study skills, math skills, etc. I can get help at any stage of the essay writing process, and I usually go for help with my political science essays. They also organize facilitated study groups. So they actually hosted one for my FRE 272 course, which is the Structure of Modern French, an Introduction. And it's a really great opportunity for me to be able to practice the material I'm learning in class. This is actually a picture I took of this building in the summer of 2019. At the time, Disney was actually filming their movie Zombies 2, and this was the set, and it was great because I was actually giving a campus tour, and I got to take families through the set, and that was really nice. And I even watched the movie on Disney Plus, and I got to see MN, so I was like, wow, that's my campus, You'll also find lots of study spaces. It's very aesthetic, and I always come here to study because I feel productive every time I'm in this building. During weekends, classrooms are vacant, so I actually watch a movie on the large projector screens while I do my work. And yes, I know what you're thinking. I do come to campus even on weekends because that's just how much I love and miss campus. And in first year, I actually had my UTM 195 Curiosity and Control Voyages of Discovery to North America in one of the active learning classrooms. And essentially, this course is a UTM 1 Scholars course, which is a seminar course that gives students an overview of research. So we only had about 25 students in our class plus the professor. So we really had a chance to get to know her. Within the UTM 1 Scholars program, the topics do change. So sometimes they have a course offered for life science students. There was even a course about justice, and of course the one that I took. So here, as I mentioned, I did learn a lot about research, and in an active learning classroom, which is great because it's not your typical classroom. So for example, you have the professor in the middle of the classroom, and then students sit in groups of about 6, and you have a lot of audio-visual technology available for you. So if you can look on the whiteboards, there's always those projectors, so it's kind of like smartboard technology. And on the desks, you actually have this thing that looks like a flying saucer, and that's actually a microphone. So in typical lecture halls, you'd have to project your voice in order to be heard by the professor. But in these kinds of classrooms, you just have to speak into the mic and everyone will hear you. But now we'll be heading on over to the building that's connected to MN. So that's Deerfield Hall. So Deerfield Hall, actually there was a naming contest when it was first built, and everyone from the community put forward suggestions, and a staff member actually suggested Deerfield Hall because it was very fitting of our campus. And this is why. You'll find a lot of deer on campus, and actually there's a field in front of Deerfield Hall, and sometimes throughout the day, you'll see a bunch of deer hanging around or running around the field. And it's really nice because no matter how long you've been at the UTM campus, everyone will always just stop and take a picture or just admire the deer. But in Deerfield Hall, you can also find a great resource, which is the Math Learning Center. I did mention I took a math course in my first year, and I found it really difficult, but what helped a lot was my math learning skills. What helped a lot with my learning skills with math is this center. So again, TAs also have their office hours here, but it's great because it doesn't really matter if they're the TA for your course, they'll still try to help you out. And one of my profs also organized drop-in study hours on certain days to help students with their assignments or any homework questions, especially when they're preparing for big tests. You'll also find lots of study spaces in here. So we booked a few study rooms for meetings, and there are designated meeting spaces as well. And of course, UTM only has 2 Starbucks on campus, and if you find that there's a long lineup in one, you can just go line up at the other. And now our final stop of the tour is the Student Center. So the Student Center is the hub of all student life on campus. You can find the UTMSU here, which is the University of Toronto Mississauga Students Union, as well as CFRE Radio, which is our radio station on campus. So actually, before the winter break started, so around December, there was a petition that was circulating, and the students wanted to get our winter break extended, and we actually won, which is a great example of student advocacy. You'll also find lots of clubs and academic societies here. So I myself am part of the Filipino Students Association, which I mentioned earlier. And what we do is we really just want to promote Filipino culture to Filipino students as well as other students on campus. So we've collaborated with other clubs to deliver events to students, ranging from meet and greets to all-you-can-eat events. And recently with the pandemic, we've also collaborated with other FSAs at other U of T campuses. And what's great about being a U of T student is that you really have this opportunity to be a member of a club at any other U of T campus. So you're not just limited to, let's say if you're a UTM student, only UTM clubs. You can be part of UTSG clubs as well. So the Student Center is actually also connected to the Blind Duck Pub, where you can buy food, and you can also find Cha Time here. And Cha Time is a really popular shop to grab some bubble tea, and my go-to order is the Cha Time Pearl Milk Tea. But you can also find that they also organize pub nights here. So one of the ones I attended in my first year was a Halloween pub, and my friends and I actually dressed up as UTM cheerleaders, and we won Best Group Costume. You can also find the My Way bus terminal, so it's actually closer to Davis, but you do pick up your My Way U-Passes in the Student Center. And this U-Pass essentially allows you to save money on transit fare because you already paid for it in your tuition, and you just have to show the bus driver, any My Way bus driver, this bus pass, and they'll let you on. You don't have to pay that fare every single time. And that actually brings me to the end of my tour. I hope everyone got to learn a little bit more about the UTM campus through my lens as a current student. There's so much that UTM can offer you, and I hope you choose to attend classes here in the fall. Thanks for listening. Now let's hear from Jen, who will be talking to you folks about residence.
Thanks, Arianne. I loved hearing about your campus experience. And so what I'm going to be talking about as part of your campus experience is the residence experience. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is why you actually might choose residence. So according to an academic study, it was actually shown that there's a greater retention to second year and graduation, meaning those who choose to live in residence are statistically more likely to stay in the university longer. Additionally, this year there was easier synchronous learning because you're in the same time zone as the time zone that your courses are being done in. You also have access to in-person communities and programming, which makes it easier to make friends and have in-person connections. You have the opportunity to experience more independent living with your peers, with access to our many residence services, including maintenance, front desk. We have 24/7, 365 support from our student and professional staff members. And lastly, you get to experience our wonderful programming that we do in residence, which is where I'm going to be focusing next. So some of the things that we have in residence to ensure that your transition to university goes well is things like Residence Council, which is a student-led organization that represents student needs and interests in residence. They run fun events throughout the year. So this year they ran some things like a Movember contest. They ran some candygrams, especially around Valentine's Day. They've done bingo nights. They've run lots of fun things for our students. We also have a large orientation and Frost Week program in residence, which consists of like a Get Experience and Residence Fair, a coffee house, Res 101, Can I Kiss You? A bunch of different events to get you oriented into residence and also to make sure that you're having fun and making a friend while you are here. And we have that for the fall, and as well, Frost Week would be your January orientation. So when you come back from the winter break. Additionally, we have a few LLCs, which are living learning communities in residence, where students in specific programs can choose to live with people of the same program. So we have LLCs for things like CCIT, the computer science program, Foundations of Research. So if you are interested in research, that'd be a good one for you. LEAF, which is the Leaders of an Environmentally Aware Future. So if sustainability is your passion, that might be one for you. The Global LLC, which is our brand new LLC that I really want to highlight because it's one that we're really passionate about this year. And it's really about making sure that you have global connections while you're in residence. And then the Life Science LLC. So if you're in that program, it'd be great for you. Our wonderful student staff are also always available for support. So our Dons, who are like your first friend in residence, are there for community building support and creating connections. Our PALs, or peer academic leaders, are your academic support in residence and help facilitate the transition academically from high school to university. And lastly, our RSAs, or resident services assistants. They work at the resident services desk or our front desk, and they're the administrative support in residence for any logistic or administrative needs that you could possibly have. Pretty much any question you have about residence, they're the ones who are going to be able to answer them. We also have lots of great programming and clubs in residence. So we have something called the Artistic Resource Team, the Equity Outreach Network. We have a choir, and they're called the Home Notes. We have something called Coleman Cup, which is a weekly kind of fun competition that we have for our students here. And we also have a sustainability committee. Now, we do have a video about a student who lived here in residence this year, and she talks about her experience and like what that looked like. And it's our friend Isabella. And so Jess will throw that video in the chat for you so you can check it out. The next thing is our COVID safety protocols that we took this year to ensure that our students were safe in residence. And so some of the things I did want to highlight was we did do an increased rigorous cleaning schedule, which was 7 days a week, where our caretaking staff went through the common spaces, so our lobbies, and really made sure that they were clean for any student walking through. We did provide single rooms for all students in residence, and we are going to be continuing that into the next year, so the upcoming year. We did provide hand sanitizing stations in all public indoor spaces. We gave masks to all students. So the University of Toronto also gave out branded masks to all students, but Student Housing Residence Life also gave out our specific branded masks to our resident students as well. So everyone was masked up. We provided plexiglass barriers for student services, so our front desks, so that they, our front desk staff felt safe, but also students felt safe interacting with them. We had a self-reporting web form, so if any student who was in residence experienced symptoms while they were here, they could get assistance from a residence life staff member and figure out what the next steps would look like if you were experiencing symptoms. We did a few other things listed below, but the last thing I did want to highlight was our health screening. So anyone who entered residence upon move-in did do a health screening to make sure that they bypass some like safety protocols for your safety and for ours. The next thing I wanted to run through is our different residence styles. So things that you as a first year might be interested in figuring out where you want to live. So the first two styles that I do want to highlight is our suite style. So we have a suite style single and a suite style super single. So the suite style single is Roy Ivor and the super single is Arendale Hall. They basically look very similar, where it's 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, and a living area. So you're only sharing that bathroom with one other person, because there's 2 of them. However, in Roy Ivor, you have that bedroom with just 1 bed and desk and that furniture, whereas in Arendale, there are double bed furniture. We are not removing the furniture, but you will only have 1 person in that bedroom for the upcoming year. So you just get more furniture, which is always helpful. The next 2 styles I do want to highlight are our traditional styles. So that's Oscar Peterson Hall. And that's where it's 2 beds and a bathroom in between. So in Oscar Peterson Hall, you don't get really anything else other than that in terms of like your own space. We do have a kitchen in the building, but it's a communal kitchen for the entire building to use. And we do have common areas on each floor for people to like socialize and hang out in. But in terms of your own space, you do only have your bedroom and that bathroom that you share with one other person, that bathroom. And then the premium townhouse, we do have, again, single and super single. So similar to the suite styles, if you are in a super single, you will have the 2 beds, you'll have that double furniture, but only 1 person will be in there this year. And then in the single, you just have the single bed by yourself. And in the premium townhouses, again, you do have 1 bathroom shared between those 2 people, and then a kitchen and living area. So now I just want to run through what the timeline looks like. So the residence application is live on STARS at residence.utoronto.ca. There are 3 things that you need to do to make sure that you've met the residence guarantee. And one of them would have been completing step 1 or our residence guarantee application by March 31st. If you haven't done it or you've missed out on that deadline, that doesn't mean that you can't apply to residence. We still strongly encourage you to, but you just no longer technically have the guarantee. So you don't have a guaranteed space. The next things that you do need to do regardless is have accepted your offer of admission by June 1st. So your offer to the university. And then once you've accepted your offer of admission, step 2 or the UTM undergrad academic year 21 to 2022 application will appear on your STARS. And you'll be able to complete that, which does have an application fee. That's where you fill out your personal information. That's the specific UTM application. So Jess is going to throw in the chat a video that goes through all the different scenarios and runs through exactly what the application looks like. So you can follow that along and check it out to see how to fill out every step of the application. Things I did also want to highlight is that on June 16th, if you are going to be given an offer of residence, you'll get that on June 16th. If you are placed on the waitlist, you'll also get that on that day. If you get an offer, you have to accept that offer, and the deadline to accept that offer is July 2nd. In accepting that offer, you do have to pay a $1,650 acceptance deposit, and so that will be part of that step, and that will be also due on July 2nd. If you accept your offer, you will be given room and roommate information on July 21st to July 23rd. So I just wanted to highlight what step 2 look like in the residence application. So when you go onto STARS or residence.utoronto.ca and you click on My Applications, if you've done step 1 already and you've accepted your University of Toronto offer, step 2 looks like this, and it appears under My Applications, and it's called, again, that UTM undergrad academic year application. If you haven't done step 1, if you hit apply to residence, you might be able to apply automatically, but you again have to accept your University of Toronto offer to fully complete it. So the things I wanted to highlight, other things I wanted to highlight is our residence fees. So you can see in this chart all the different fees for each different style of housing that I've already talked about. And something I wanted to remind you is that you would have paid the $350 application fee when you apply to step 2. And if you accept your offer, you pay a $1,650 acceptance deposit. So in total, that amounts to $2,000. So before you even arrive to campus, you'll have already contributed $2,000 towards your residence fees. So that means that, for example, if I got Oscar Peterson Hall as my place of residence, I'll have already paid $2,000. So the remaining balance for me would be $9,372 that I would owe to residents. The other thing is that these fees actually do not include meal plan, but a meal plan is required for all students who live in residence. Questions about meal plan should be directed to the meal plan office. So Jess will throw in a link about meal plan into the chat so that if you do have any questions specifically about that, you can connect with them and check out their fees. Last thing I did want to highlight is that we are, again, just if you have any other questions for us that we don't get to answer today, you can contact us. So again, the application's live on residence.utoronto.ca. Our email is resdesk.utm@utoronto.ca and by phone at 905-828-5286. We do have a live chat if you just visit our website, and we would love to have you on social media. So follow us. That's where we're promoting a lot of our things as well, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So that's all I have for you today about residence. I will now bring back Alicia and Arianne, and we can start doing Q&A.
Hey everyone, so thank you so much. Both of your presentations were really informative, and I'm sure a lot of folks were able to get a lot of information out of it. So as we kickstart things off, I would love to ask both of you, why did you choose UTM? What makes UTM such a special campus to be at? So we'll start off with you, Arianne.
Yeah, so for me, I did mention I actually applied to the commerce program at UTM and I got accepted. And for me, a lot of people were like wondering, oh, how come you didn't apply to like Rotman Commerce, for example, at downtown? And for me, it came down to really the environment where I wanted to be studying. So I also knew I was going to be a commuter student. I wasn't going to live on res. And I personally preferred the commute to UTM, and I also preferred the environment. It's such a very welcoming community, and that's what really helped me make my decision.
How about you, Jen?
So when I was a student here, I'm no longer a student, but when I was, I chose coming to UTM. Mainly it started with like programs. So I was in an education program, which only UTM only has a minor now. But at the time, it was really about that program. But I also just really love the vibe of UTM. So UTM is its own, it really feels like its own campus. And you feel like when you walk on campus that you're part of the UTM and University of Toronto experience, which was really important for me. Having come from like a small town, going to downtown to a really big city was very intimidating. And I wanted the access to go downtown and to visit downtown without having to exactly live there. And UTM provided that for me. And the campus is just gorgeous. So upon visiting it, I was like, I know this is where I want to be, because it was just exactly, it passed all my vibe checks, really.
I love to, it's so interesting to see all the different reasons why people chose to attend UTM, because it really, there's a huge list as to why. And I can definitely agree with both of you. Like being a commuter student myself, Arianne, seeing that bus pass was like, yes, I need some help with paying my finances. This can definitely help with my budget. But like you, Jen, it passed the vibe. Literally, I'm a person who loves to be like in senior, like outdoors, and to see the amount of trees and areas we can just walk through, I was like, okay, I need this. Like I would get so confused if I was downtown between all the different buildings. So totally agree. Now I'm going to be going through the questions. So I'm going to be shifting back and forth between the both of you. So stay tuned for that. And I'm going to pass it over first to you, Jen. And that is, how are students going to know which resident style they're going to be actually getting?
Yeah, so when you fill out the application, so step 2, the UTM undergrad academic year application, there is an option to indicate where you would like to live. So you do have to rank all your preferences, and you rank them 1 to 5. So you do have to rank every single option that we have. And we do our best to ensure that we try and meet one of your top 3 options. So we already like make that effort for you. The other thing to consider is just that same and mixed gender housing. I haven't mentioned it, I just realized, but so in the application, you also have the opportunity to indicate if you want same gender or mixed gender, and that contributes to where we'll be able to place you. So if you select mixed gender, it just means your unit will be of people who identify as different genders. If you pick same gender, you'll be with people who identify as the same gender as you. So those things kind of go into your placements. And then you find out exactly where you've been placed between July 21st and July 23rd. So we do send you an email with your roommate information so you can connect with them. And then you also get the exact location. So you'll find out if you are in like a Oscar Peterson traditional, if you're in a super single suite style, or whatever that option will be. You'll find that out in that email.
Awesome. And while we're still speaking about residents, we do have another question, which is related to fees. And that is, when do you pay them? Do you pay them all at once, or do you pay them on a regular basis?
Yeah, so residence fees are posted in 2 installments. So the first one is due on September 30th, and the second one is due on November 30th. If you have things like OSAP or anything that you require in order to pay for your schooling, your second installment can be deferred until January. If you don't pay your fees by those installments, so there's the first installment is rated at 60% of your entire residence fees, and second installment is 40% of your entire residence fees. If you don't pay them by those deadlines, it's not like we kick you out or anything like that. Really, you just start to get interest charges on your account. But those are the 2 deadlines that you should remember for when you're paying your fees.
Perfect. Thank you. Now passing it over to you, Arianne. So throughout your presentation, you talked a lot about how you were heavily involved in a lot of different extracurriculars, work study programs, and so forth. But do you mind sharing a little bit of how did you even get involved? And what are some of your tips on how did you manage everything?
Yeah, so starting off with the first part of that question, which is how I got involved. I knew in first year that a lot of upper year students always say get involved right from your first year, because as soon as first year was done, like I regretted not being part of clubs and everything else. So there was a lot of those orientations that I attended, right? So a lot of those orientations would include like a representative from like a club or an academic society. And I'd be like, oh, that's cool. Like that club exists. So then by the time Clubs Week rolled around, which is around the second week of September, back when things were in person, um, I made a list of all of those clubs that I wanted to get to know, and like I looked for them and I talked to every one of them, and I was like, how do I apply? How do I get involved? Like, what do I have to do to be just a general member? And it was really from that point where I was like, okay, so this is what I want to do. And they taught me that like you can gain a lot of skills just by being part of this club, you know. It's something that you can add to your like student life experience, which is why I was part of it. And that's the same thing with like volunteering at the office and moving on eventually to work study experience, because in first year they were like the student recruitment and admissions was actually tabling for student volunteers to do like tour guides. And I was like, hey, I did a lot of tours. Like I went on a lot of UTM tours. I was like, why not do this too? So I actually did that throughout my first year and also in the summer of 2019. And then eventually at the end of second year is when I decided I want to be applied to be a student ambassador and do all these things because I've had such a great experience. I want to pass that on to students as well. And then in terms of like managing my time, like I know it does sound like a lot, but I do like have these planners. I set reminders for myself and like really prioritize what are things that are due very soon, what are things that I can push off until later. And like that way I can really work on getting everything done in order.
Perfect. And I know, Jen, that Residence has a lot of resources that are there to help students as well with trying to get adjusted to all these different things that they can get involved with. Do you mind sharing a little bit about it?
Yeah, so in residence, we have several touch points with our students. So specifically, our student staff have one-on-ones with each student to chat about pretty much anything that you want. But it's why we kind of say that your Dawn is your first friend in residence. And what's great about this is our student staff are some of the most knowledgeable about campus and residence life and can guide you to things that might interest you. So for example, if you love to sing, they might suggest you check out our residence choir. We really focus on fostering a community in residence and ensuring that every student comes out with a friend. So even through the pandemic, we talked about this a bit in the presentation, but Isabella's experience really talks about some of the things that she got involved with in residence through the pandemic, and how she talked about living here with her peers and how it was worth that to keep her connected. So we do try to make sure that all of our students at least make a friend, but also like reach out to our resources that we have on campus, but also specifically in residence with all our clubs and organizations and fun stuff like that we do.
So as you can see through the perspective of Arianne, who is a commuter student, and Jen, who is part of residence, is that there's equal amount of opportunities for both people, commuter or students who live on residence, to really gain access to all the different resources that are available on campus and to truly get involved and be a part of a sense of a community. So don't feel like if you're doing one or the other, you're going to be disadvantaged in any way, because as you can see, there is definitely equal opportunity for everybody. All right, so Arianne, we do have some questions here related to online learning, and I would love to learn a little bit more about your experience and what was it like to experience online learning?
Yeah, so online learning, I really thought that I was going to miss out on a lot of the in-person experience, but I didn't feel any of that because if anything, my professors are even more understanding. They really don't want you to experience that Zoom fatigue. They really do, like, even if you have, like, let's say you have an assignment and you have a lot of other assignments due at around the same time, like, your professor is going to be really understanding, like my professor was, and she was like, take the extension, you know, like, I'm not even going to ask for, like normally they ask for medical notes, which they didn't ask for this time because we are in a pandemic and a lot of us have to be understanding of one another. And I still was able to make new friends, like in my French classes. A lot of us were like looking for opportunities to practice the language, and we made these group chats, and like really I still had that same level of connection, but this time it was just online, and I was still able to be part of clubs and like classes and everything. Like I was still able to get the experience that I wanted out of it, even though it was online. And I'm not in like this, I don't have any science classes, but I believe there were labs in person. And for example, in the upcoming summer, there are classes in person, but a lot of people are choosing to take courses online. So it's really up to you if you want to make that choice. you will get that opportunity to learn at UTM if you do choose to come here, because they will teach you wherever you are.
Thank you. And as Arianne, as well as my colleague had mentioned in the chat, we did offer a hybrid of courses in during this past school year where you had the option to take it in person or online. We are planning to have a gradual safe return onto campus in fall, so you definitely keep an eye out for all the information that's going to come regarding that, but we will definitely be working really hard to make sure that you can get both offerings offered to you. All right, so Jen, we have some questions here related to if students are living on residence, what happens during winter break? Do they have to go home or are they still able to live on residence?
Yeah. So during the winter break, the university does close. However, in residence, as I've said, we're 24/7, 365. So we do ask that, like, if you do want to go home, you're more than welcome. And if you do want to stay, you do have to apply to stay. But there's no like additional fees or anything like that. You pretty much just have to let us know that you do want to stay so that we make sure that we go through your area for rounds, which are something that our dawn on duties do. To make sure that campus is safe. And so all you have to do is actually apply. But if you do want to stay on campus over the winter break, you are more than welcome to do that. Especially for international students, we know going home can always be a bit difficult, especially just for like a 2-week period. So we've made that accommodation. And again, it's free, so you don't have to worry about any extra costs.
Now, speaking about campus, I would love to hear from both of you. What is your favorite food on campus? A lot of people always associate their university life with, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to eat, or should I bring lunches from home? But, a lot of the time we always spend a lot of our money buying food on campus. I was definitely guilty of it. So I'd love to hear from both of you. What are your favorite spots? So Arianne, let me know.
Yeah, so there's this one spot in the Davis building. It's called Bespoke, and it's essentially like Mongolian cuisine, and they also do like these rice bowls. And my favorite part about it is that one of the chefs, I think it's Chef Donna, she's Filipino, and she incorporated like adobo sauce, and I was like, yay, because that's part of our culture, and I wanted to include that in my food, and that I have that option, that's great for me. So I love ordering from there.
How about you, Jen?
For me, so it all depends kind of on location and what I want to eat. So Coleman Commons is actually in residence and it's super convenient. They make food in front of you like other places on campus, but the biggest selling feature for me when I was here was it's definitely convenient. For example, I lived in Oscar Peterson Hall and it's in the lobby downstairs, so I could just walk down in my pajamas to grab breakfast or have a late night snack or whatever I really wanted. But my favorite spot on campus is actually Booster Juice. So it's right by the rock and it's delicious, and I'm always a sucker for a good smoothie. I know it's not exactly like a big meal or anything like that, but it was always where I spent all of my money.
See, as you can see, there's so many options for you to choose from, and I 100% recommend to try out everywhere. I tried out the place that Arianne recommend as well as Jen, and just wanted to say that, it doesn't, you don't need to be only living on residence to try out that food court. I would literally just go there to just get food because sometimes they had some of the best options that I wanted to eat that day. It's all about your mood. For me personally, I loved going to the Deerfield Bistro. They have a buffalo pizza. I'm like, my mouth is watering thinking about it. I miss it so much. But I remember like one semester, it was so bad, but I definitely had to do it. Every single day I made sure I bought that pizza slice because it just hit home. It like saved all the feels, it just made me feel so comfortable. So thank you both. So for folks who didn't get a chance to ask their question yet, this is a perfect opportunity for you to drop your questions down below. I see that we're reaching close towards our time, so I want to make sure that we are able to answer anything that we can while we still are here. But I would also love to hear from you, Arianne. Do you mind talking a little bit about what is it like switching programs? A lot of students are kind of in this spot right now where they're a little unsure if this is the right thing they want to do and if this is the right choice. Do you mind sharing your experiences?
Of course. So again, I did mention earlier that I applied and got in for commerce at UTM, but towards the end of my first year, I decided not to pursue it at all, because how it works at UTM is that you are admitted to admissions category and then you actually decide your specialists, your majors, and your minors at the end of your first year. And I really did enjoy taking political science and French. So I was like, this seems like it could be the right fit for me. And I at the end of the day, my goal is still to become a lawyer. So I met with a lot of people. I met with an academic advisor from the Office of the Registrar. I met with the departmental academic advisors from each of those departments, really determining, is this the right fit for me? What can I study here? How can I make the most of my undergraduate career by being in this program? Things like that. I looked at the Career Centers program plans, like possible careers I could go into, say, because getting into law school, I presume, will be a challenge. So I wanted to make sure I had a backup plan for myself. So it was really about making use of all the resources I had available for me and really talking to friends, family, really deciding, is this the right fit for me? And all of those conversations and all of these resources really made that choice much easier for me. And so once I fully pursued and I started taking more political science courses and more French courses, like, I'm really happy in the program I'm in now, and I'm glad I made that choice.
Awesome. So as you can see, like, it's really, we are super flexible in wanting to allow our students to really study and excel in what they're interested in. Jen was doing education studies. Arianne, she went from business all the way into humanities. I was a science student, and there's so many different areas where you can pivot. Don't feel as if that you're stuck into one box right when you enter. You have the ability to switch programs throughout the year. So that's kind of like the whole gist of it, is that try out new courses. You never know what you may like, and hopefully one of them sticks. All right. So now, Jen, for students who are also living on residence, what is one of the biggest perks that a lot of students underestimate is one of the highlighting features of it?
So living on residence is like really great just because of the amount of like people that you'll get to interact with. So it's so easy to make friends when you're living and working with all of your peers. So I always find residence super beneficial, especially for students who are really nervous about coming to school and making connections, because you're pretty much guaranteed to like at least meet someone and connect with someone in residence because you're living and studying with them. But I would also say like a lot of students love residence just for its straight up convenience. So in residence, you're actually on campus. So there's some institutions where residents can be like on the outside of campus or close to campus, but not exactly on. But here at UTM, when you're in campus, it's like one large area, and residence is part of that. So really depending on where you are, like the farthest that you'd have to walk from your class can be a minute, but the farthest that you'd ever have to walk is like 5 to 10 minutes just to even get from to and from class. So my favorite part when I was living on residence is that you could wake up 5 minutes before class started and still make it on time. So I really love that part. And then I made all of my really good friends. My roommate, who I actually live with still to this day, I made as a friend in residence. So you never know who you're going to meet and how strong those connections will be. And so that's one of my favorite parts about residence.
Thank you. Now, my last question is over to you, Arianne, and that is for students who are a little bit shy or nervous to reach out to their professors or get to know students, what would be some tips that you would recommend for them?
I would say what I did when I was also feeling the same thing was, at the end of a lecture, if you have a question, or like even during breaks, because like most lectures are, let's say, 2 hours anyways, after the 1 hour mark you do have that break. So during breaks and after the end of the lecture, use that time to like talk to your professor. Even if you already kind of know the answer to the question, just ask them anyway, because then they're able to remember, oh, there's a student interested in what I'm teaching. They're curious, and like they actually take the time to get to know the material, and they're really practicing and they want to succeed. So once you start having those conversations at the end of the lecture, then maybe they'll invite you to come to office hours more, or just make that jump to go to office hours, because in my experience, or from what I've heard, like a lot of students actually do not make use of office hours. So really, professors are very accessible to every student. So that's what I had in my mindset, which was really making sure that, what am I going to lose just by going to office hours? Like nothing, right? It's really just a great opportunity for you to succeed in your own courses as well, not just to build that relationship with your professor. That's an added benefit, but for you to succeed in your courses.
I think that's definitely a great tip because how many times have we been studying and we come across a concept and we're like, oh, I don't know what this is. I'll come back to it later. And lo and behold, that pops up on the midterm and you're like, I wish I asked that question. I wish I understood what was going on here. So definitely make use of your professors, speak to your peers, speak to your teaching assistants. They're all here to help you out and really make sure that you succeed. So with that being said, I would like to end off our tour here. And I'd like to thank everyone so much for joining in and wanting to learn a little bit more from Arianne's perspective, as well as learn a little bit more about residents from Jen. We really appreciate all the questions and your time here today. So thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your morning, evening, or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Bye.